is that new thing that you're choosing. Get up, the dance is moving. Episode 1, Step Touch. Welcome friends, I'm BDG, and I'll teach you how to dance properly. Learning to dance shouldn't be a frustration. In homes and dance, you gotta build a foundation. Finding the beat, or finding your wife. The step touch will get you through the dance of life. Are you ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1, step touch.
What happens when your favorite online dance instructor learns to cope after losing family, friends, and all sense of self? You get dances moving. When I tell people about dances moving, I give them one sentence. It's the average dancer-sized video collection turned in-depth self-discovery. And as bizarre as it seems, Dances Moving, a 7-part YouTube series, is one that you need to watch. In 2018, my family moved from Brooklyn, New York, all the way out to small Townsville, Arkansas. This was a change, to say the least. A couple weeks after we moved in, I found a small YouTuber by the name of Brian David Gilbert. He had semi-recently gotten a job as a Polygon.com video producer, and I instantly fell in love. I watched everything he had on his channel, everything other than Dances Moving. It seemed like too big of a commitment to watch and would be a waste of time. Besides, it was directed by his sister, Laura, someone who I knew nothing about. To me, there was no way anyone could produce a 7-part miniseries that stayed funny and entertaining while still delivering a sincere message that would fuel a 20-minute-long video essay. Right? And to that oddly specific thought I definitely had, boy was I wrong. Point is, Dances Moving came at exactly the right time for me. Just as I had moved 2,000 miles away from home, away from my life, I had found a series helping me deal with my emotions. Or maybe teaching me how not to deal with them. Because despite Brian hiding under the goofy lyrics, there's some truth to what he has to say. There are 7 episodes, each of which tells an important piece of the puzzle. From the first episode, we are introduced to Brian's seemingly perfect life and his dance class. They play off the stereotypical TV meet cute and present Brian as a somewhat awkward guy just trying to express himself through dance.
Step touch. Step touch.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
No, you're right. You can do it anywhere. Yeah.
I'll see you next week. You're gonna be back for
I'll step touch you later.
I'll step touch you later.
Okay.
That's still weird. Bye.
Though there isn't much to say initially of the first episode, Step Touch, there is one lyric that always stands out to the listener. Brian cuts from the song's list of places to do the step touch to bring up when the move works. And to him, that's always. The song is in the time signature 4/4, which the majority of Western music follows as well. For any non-musicians, the numerator in a time signature signifies how many beats there are in each measure of music. 4/4 is Brian's safe space. He knows the songs, and he knows the step touch works.
The step touch thrives in counts of 4, and this means you don't have to worry anymore, cause I know all the songs and I've made a list, and a tune not good for this move does not exist.
We pick up on the next episode with High Knees. Throughout the song, Brian compares the dance move with his own success in life. The song, again in 4/4, brings him security, and much like the step touch, he knows High Knees will work. This moves him to be so forward, he goes out on a limb and asks Meghan Stanton's character out. And of course, as this is Brian's perfect world, she says yes.
More self-esteem, I can walk into a room and say, hey, look at me, yes you, look at me, I'm great and smart and nice and we should go on a date, I'll pick you up at 8. Sorry, that was 4, you know.
Wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Sweet. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll see you then.
Yeah.
Knees up, knees up, knees up, she said.
As depressing as it sounds, these first 2 episodes set up everything for Brian to lose in the future. With that, we move on to episode 3, Crab. The song focuses on Brian's love of Baltimore, his home city. And if it isn't clear from the patriotic lyrics and visuals, the description of the video and Brian's costume only confirm this. And it is in this anthem of a city that Brian brings up his need to move. This is the moment where the series goes from a lighthearted collection of skits to a full-on story of self-improvement. When Brian brings up the need to move, he doesn't just surprise his friends, girlfriend, and dance mates, he surprises himself. Whether this is because he wasn't ready to say it or because he didn't know he wanted to, The words coming out of his mouth seem confusing at best.
You know we got paint she grabs. Gotta love this city, but I've been thinking more that I might have to move out of Baltimore.
He's so overcome with emotion, he's no longer able to keep dancing. He can't even put on the front of a happy-go-lucky dance instructor. This is where we start to see the truth of Brian's character, who he is below the surface. And this is the first time people around him know as well. Little glimpses, though, are hidden throughout the floaty melody of Step Touch.
Hey, cause there's a reason you're feeling kinda insecure in your life, bro. Maybe it's a job that's the root of all your discontented strife. No, what
Brian wasn't happy where he was in the world. Maybe it's his job he didn't know, and nobody around him knew either. But what he did know, he had to keep moving. This is why episode 4, Wiggle Arms, is so important. Brian has come to terms with having to move. He ran out of options where he was, and the only option left was to, well, move. He packs up his car and he says goodbye to his friends. He gives them a hug, a wiggle arm wave, and pulls out of his parking spot. It's a somber ending. I know it's somber because Brian says so.
Cause you're leaving your city and your best friends too. The atmosphere is somber, but you gotta get through. So before you hop in, there's one thing to do. Wiggly limbs, not Slim Jims.
But there are still 3 more episodes. What happens next? When we cut back to the dance studio, the people he waved goodbye to are missing. Though he's still teaching his dance class, the next episode shows the apparent destruction this had on his community. In Partner Dancing, the following episode, we get a song which should be about love and working together, but instead becomes a song about losing your love and trying to cope. The episode starts with a classic spiel, but with the characters from the previous episode still missing, Brian is missing a partner to dance with. The odd number of people in the room forces him to be alone for the first time in the whole series.
Flares, so everybody, let's get in pairs. We have an odd number in our dancing zone, so I guess I'll teach you while I'm on my own.
And then, without delay, just minutes into the song, Brian gets a text message from Meghan.
And your partner, you must be a team. One leads and one follows. But wait, what?
The episode switches between shots of Brian uncomfortably teaching his class and video calls with Meghan, going through what can only be assumed to be a breakup. This spirals out of control. We follow up with the aftermath in the next episode, episode 6. Slow Worm, the name of the episode, tells us all we need to know. Especially when compared to the Brian we see in episode 1, this looks like it could be a completely different person. In one final attempt to get his feelings out through dance, he loses every last person he has, right down to Declan. But before we dive into this emotional roller coaster of a finale, we should take a step back. As we've stated, the step touch is Brian's safe move, his fallback point. And as we've touched on, the step touch is reliant on the time signature of 4/4. There is one other popular use of a different time signature, though. In Western music, we hear the waltz. This uses 3/4. This means in each measure, there are 3 beats. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the first time we see Brian struggle to deal with his emotions is in episode 5. And what do you know? The music is now in 3/4, away from Brian's home. Brian points this out though.
Please listen carefully, yes, even you. The rhythm has shifted, you see. We're dancing in pairs, 1 + 1 = 2. But now we must find our groove in a 3 because waltzing...
But just like this new and foreign time signature, Brian has put himself in a new and foreign position. Not only is he uncomfortable emotionally, he's uncomfortable where he is physically. Baltimore, the city where he grew up, isn't home anymore. And after the moving sequence in episode 4, we see multiple more dance moves in episodes. Whether this sequence is the moment he moves or if he stays in Baltimore, his friends aren't there to support him. Moving sucks. No matter how hard you try to keep in touch with someone and stay there for them, eventually you have to start over. As you might expect, the people you're going to miss the most are the people you're closest to. And what do you know? Meghan, his closest friend and girlfriend, he can't bring with him. Moving doesn't just impact your friends and social life. Moving changes your identity. The Brian we start with isn't the Brian we end the series with. In the first 3 episodes, where we learn about who Brian is as a character, we learn 3 big things. 1, he's happy. 2, he's a dancer. And 3, he's from Baltimore and he is proud. But by the time we get to episode 7, he's lost 2 of the 3. And the only thing keeping him together is his dance. This loss is present obviously throughout the episodes, but nothing proves its prevalence more than the costume change between episodes 4 and 5. After Brian loses his friend, he also loses his home. He switches from wearing his Baltimore flag shorts with pride to a plain pair of blue athletic shorts. The color, though, is not dissimilar to the blue on the New York state flag. And all of this stems from a more in-depth analysis of Brian's character. From the start of the series, it's clear Brian thinks the only way to succeed is to keep moving. Staying positive and moving forward, but more importantly, ignoring the issues. This is shown throughout the series, but my favorite example is from the first episode.
Hey, 'cause there's a reason you're feeling kinda insecure in your life, bro. Maybe it's a job that's a root of all your discontent and strife. No, what if I told you you just gotta keep moving? Here's a secret to life, it can't suck if you're grooving in the gateway move. Won't surprise you much, drop your cares at the door, it's time to step touch.
Great work.
This is what it means to be a dancer to Brian. The ability to move through hard situations and not look back. Though at first glance this seems positive, he's never able to learn from his mistakes. And so once he can't wiggle himself out anymore, once he can't keep on moving, he's stuck. He doesn't know how to adapt. He's a slow worm. And this gets the best of him. Every moment Brian has the opportunity to fix things, he chooses to close the door and walk right past. This metaphor might seem familiar, because in episode 5, Brian uses the same exact one.
And you don't have to look anymore. She's there, it's good. Case closed, lock the door.
Brian doesn't allow himself to fail, the opportunity to change. Because unlike a video game, there's no restart button. And this terrifies Brian. Unable to be a dancer, unable to keep moving forward, he locks up his problems and just tries to live with them. There's no better example of this than in episode 3. In what seems like words used just for the right rhythm, Brian lets us in on the biggest piece of the puzzle.
Salty Balty is my fave and the people are the best, yo. But as a dancer, I feel that I have to go.
His dancer instincts tell him to keep moving forward, despite everything else telling him to stay put. His dreams and aspirations tell him to work around, not through his struggles. So instead of reaching for his friends for support, making new solutions and learning to adapt, he steamrolls ahead without second thoughts. And Brian knows this. In episode 5, he talks about how love isn't steamrolling. Unlike in partner dancing, with one person leading and the other one following, love requires people to make decisions together.
One isn't steamrolling, no, that's just mean. You both have to listen and collaborate and then...
And yet, as a dancer, this isn't something he can do easily. He's in new territory and he doesn't know how to handle it, hence the new time signature. And all of this brings us back to the final episode. Let's just watch the opening monologue.
Welcome, friends. I'm BDG, and I'll teach you how to dance properly. Seems like everyone has all gone home, so I guess I'll teach you this on my own. Look, here's the thing about life and dance. You can't tell what'll happen in advance. Sometimes your moves won't work so hot, but it's best to keep dancing with what you got. And even if you are whittled down to 1, remember that you started all this for fun. You haven't really thought about it for a bit, but your love of dance is why you started it. If you focus too hard on how others feel, your anxiety and worries will start to seem real, but the truth is your dancing doesn't have to be great. You'll have more fun if you don't concentrate, and the best way to get you back to a smile is to give yourself a chance to freestyle. Are you ready? Here we go.
Brian finally comes to the realization that being a dancer isn't about dancing away the problems. He's learned that pushing through isn't always the best option. Instead, using the tools at his disposal to come up with something new. Adapting to the situation is the only solution. When the music starts, we find something very interesting. The song isn't in 4/4, but it isn't in 3/4 either. As the comments are quick to point out, the song is in 7/8. What's important to note here is that we're in a time signature which is hard to feel. Dancing to a song with an odd number on top that isn't 3 takes immense amount of practice to do well. Though uncommon, songs that use 7/8 or any other odd time signature tend to subdivide to allow for easier playing. You merge 2 smaller counts to make up a single measure. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turns to 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. All this means is that Brian isn't in totally new territory. Though having moved miles away from home and though he's lost part of his identity, he's still in there. And he's going to be able to move through it. The familiarity of the count of 4 gives him a base to work off of. That's not to say it's easy though. After taking a moment on the floor, Brian tries his ultimate home move. In one last-ditch effort to fall back onto what he knows, one last attempt to avoid this new world of adapting and freestyling, he does the step touch. And he can't do it. It doesn't work. The subdivision of 3 throws him off. For the first time in his life, the change of moving has brought a problem he can't ignore. He's no longer able to skimp on the responsibilities of problem solving and instead has to face the challenges head on. With this said, change is hard. Whether it's changing your own character, changing who you call friends, or changing where you call home, change sucks. I watched a video by Tom Scott recently, and though about computers and backwards compatibility of apps, he said something that really stuck with me. Change is hard. You change too much at once and nobody will use your app, but if you change too little, nothing has happened. You're called a quitter. And I think life is the same way. You can move away from home, your identity can change, but you're still you. The app is still the app. And as daunting as new situations can be, there will always be something you know to work off of. And so use that. Plan and simulate and try to think of every possible outcome to every possible situation. But no matter what, you'll always have to be ready when life throws a curveball. Not because you forgot to plan and input and output, but because you don't have to know what you're doing to try. You don't have to be a dancer to dance. While Brian tells you how he finds success and tells you how he copes with failure, he never teaches freestyling. Because at the end of the day, when all else fails, when the moon crumbles and when you're not in 4-4, you'll find yourself in new and foreign grounds, and you'll make it up as you go.